anything is possible. You will doubt yourself. You'll doubt yourself every day, probably for the first 6 months, maybe 12 months. I would only listen to someone that's done what I want to achieve. In any realm, you want to be the smallest guy in there, the most inexperienced person, the unfittest person to learn off all these people, because they're going to pull you up if you've got the right mindset. Mate, I started it from nothing, like literally just a thought.
Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know I started this podcast because over the years I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps, and I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Adam Smith from Alfa Mortgages. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. And if we could start off, and if you could let people know what you actually do.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on today. It's really good to be here. So essentially, my main business is Alfa Mortgages, which is a mortgage brokerage specialising in anything from first-time buyers, home movers, remortgages, bridging finance, commercial finance. We do a lot of when it comes to mortgages. That's kind of the day job, really, but also, as part of that, we have the Alpha Chats podcast. So that kind of came from me just wanting to have a bit of a creative outlet. I've always been quite a creative person. And basically, we just have interesting people on. Like, I think, okay, that person's interesting. I want to sit them down for an hour and I want to pick their brains, find out about their story, find out what makes them tick. You know, what struggles have they had in their life to get to a stage where they are now, and what have they learned from that? So that's just kind of followed on from the YouTube videos I was making about mortgages, really.
Yeah, actually, I saw quite a few of those YouTube videos. You got a lot of views on some of them, actually.
Yeah, some have got like a few thousand on there. YouTube's a funny one. Sometimes you'll put a video out and it will just hit the algorithm right, or it may be, one of the videos I uploaded as a blog post to my website, and then I could see on that page on Google Analytics, it was just getting loads of hits, which corresponded with views. So people were clearly Googling, I think it was like how to repay your mortgage early, were landing on this page and then hitting the video. So it's proof that you're kind of driving it from Google onto YouTube.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And is that, I guess that it's really good what you're doing, because a lot of people in the finance space, they're not that eager to get on the camera, are they?
No, and it can be quite boring as well. I've seen some other content and it's just dry, and I think
you must have been watching my channel days.
No, I mean specifically mortgage content, and I'm thinking you're just going to bore someone to death in 5 minutes. It's got to be. I like to create engaging content, and I'm always trying to think about, well, what do people want to see? And I'm changing and developing it. Like recently, we've started doing property viewings with a guy who I work with, Ryan, who specialises in hands-free investors over in Peterborough. So I was like, well, look, let's go and view some properties with you. What are you looking for? So we've done a video on that. We'll be doing more on that. I've got a good client of mine. He's started to get into property flipping. So buying properties, typically pre-auction or probate at a lower price. We're then going and doing the refurb work on that. And then at the back end, there's going to be like a nice refurbished property. So what I want to film is the before, the during and the after. So that's kind of the next step of things that we're doing. And then just I've got one coming up, market outlook for 2024 as well. Just, 2, 3, 4 minute short videos so people can just think, okay, there's something to think about. And yeah, so a range of content. And then of course the podcast is just going to go from strength to strength, really.
You know what, market outlook for 24, that's like when I do a video on the budget, and I hate doing videos on the budget, but I'm like, you know what, this may be topical, I must do a video on the budget. But the thing that always frustrates me about doing a video on the budget is the government makes everything seem to be something, but actually, hey, you move that thing by 1%, you move that other thing back by 1%, everyone's 0% better off. And
Take from here and give there.
Yeah, and it's all a lot of noise, but yeah, I do. It's relevant. I think there's the videos you really want to do, and then there's the videos you kind of feel you have to do, I guess.
Yeah, and I think as well, like what's really good on YouTube, you can put research keywords, so it can actually, if you go into like the research tab on YouTube, it's certainly on there on your phone, and it will ping up like, I don't know if you'd call it keywords or topics that people are Googling that's related to your keywords that you've put. So I just look on there sometimes and think, oh, people are looking, that'd be a good video. And that's a way I kind of think, really? People want to know, okay, and I do it. And then you put the video out and you get a few thousand views. But I think you've got to have, someone said to me with YouTube, audio is the most important thing. So the audio's got to be good. Secondly, the production's got to be good. So I'm always trying to think of ways each video just to level it up a little 1% or a 2% just to get a little bit better, just to test myself really and see, you know, what we're capable of. Yeah,
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We had a bit of a brief discussion earlier. Obviously, I don't want to piss anyone off, but it's like a lot of work goes into actually creating like an actual video podcast. And while Zoom podcasts are great as well, it can be the easy option. Like if you're fighting for someone's attention and trying to get them to view something, like I think it makes a difference going that extra mile to actually show them that we're willing to invest in it.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, you've got to think, right, what do you want to watch? Like, Nishi, what is it, when you go on YouTube, what do you want to watch? What kind of content, what kind of level of quality are you accustomed to that you're going to sit there and you're going to engage with? And generally, to level up in this game now, you've got to invest in your equipment, and you have to invest in the team that build the podcast. You know, I've got QB who does all the production, all the filming, all the editing. I have people that do the thumbnails. I have people that do the keywords, the description, research. And people might think, oh, that's a bit overkill. But my long-term aim is I want to get to that 100,000. I want that plaque literally just to show to my two daughters that are 9 and 10, look, Daddy did it. Because that's my target long-term. And I will get there. Yeah. It might take 5-10 years, but I will get there.
Is that the silver plaque thing?
Yeah. So that's what I want. And you need 100K subs for that.
Yeah.
And that's the aim. But you have to enjoy the process of getting there. And you know, when I get a good piece of content and I watch it, because when you're doing these, you think you're concentrating in the moment on a conversation. But it's when you play it back, maybe a few weeks later, and you think, well, that's really good. Like that's got value. And then when the real value comes when people are messaging you saying, oh, so-and-so's messaged me about me being on that podcast. Oh yeah, and they really liked it, and they've like subscribed, and you think, you must be giving some value. And that's the bottom line, value. Yeah. And when you've got good production, it's easy to chop it into reels, and then you're repurposing that content all the time. I'm a big believer in tech and AI. Yeah. And maybe we'll get onto the topic. Prior to having my business, I worked at a fintech in London, and that's where I really learned about tech. And you have to stay up to date with these things. You know, anything you do in life, if you fudge it, it's never going to be great. It's never going to be 100%. And I'm obsessive about everything that I do to that kind of level. So, you know, it's a blessing and a curse, but it's got to be, you can't have perfection because that doesn't exist, but it's got to be as good and as close to that as I can possibly get. And I want to see progress in every video that I do. Yeah. That's
amazing. Yeah. And you're, what frequency are you releasing your podcasts at the moment?
So this is a great question and something that we talked about a lot. And I think the biggest mistake people can make is, so we're going to do one every week or every whatever. And then they slip on the content. And Stephen Bartlett said this really good. summed it up really well. He will scrutinise it. He'll watch it, scrutinise it before he releases it. We decided we'd batch it in series. So we'd film like 5-10 episodes, series 1. Yeah. Then probably next quarter, 5-10 episodes again, and release them.
So it's about fortnightly, pretty much sure.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, but then there's gap fill in there with other videos we do. If we think, actually, we've just been out to do a property with Ryan, let's put that in. We'll put that in. And I think the key is people wanting the content, but not overdoing it to the point where I think, oh bloody hell, I've got to catch up on last week's and the week before's, and I've got because that's what can happen.
Well, this is a challenge we ended up with, because we ended up we started off. So this podcast is almost like just a year and 2 months old now. So we started off in October 22, and then like we were doing it with Revolution Radio, filming in their studio, but eventually we just wanted it in house. So we started doing our own thing, but initially it was like fortnightly, and then we got to a point where we were like, we just got busy and we didn't do it for a while, and then we started doing it weekly again. So what episode is this, Ellie, that we're filming at the moment? It must be 30 something, early 30s, and then we the whole of the first year we pretty much we probably averaged fortnightly, but we're shifting over to monthly podcasts, and one of the reasons for that is like a lot of the podcast content that we create now, it goes out on LinkedIn. We use this to get clients a lot of the time, although also to capture stories that just like you do. And the one thing we realized was LinkedIn has started really rationing the amount of content you can put on there. Like, it's before you could stick like 10 posts on a week, and now if you do more than 5, you get penalized. So what we found was we were creating the podcast, but we had so many good clips that were taken out of each podcast, and we couldn't use them all. So then we got down to, well, it's better to have one a month, but actually really use all the clips well. Then we've got all the clips from all the previous episodes we do that we've got to mix in there as well. So it's just, I think anyone looking at this thinking of starting a podcast, you get so much content out of one episode.
Absolutely. Loads. Like just so much. But I think the focus, it really comes down, like you said there, once a month. I think that's brilliant, because then you're focusing on quality, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to give people more value, firstly, and you're going to get more back from giving that value. So people will be like, well, that's worth subscribing for. Or they'll see a reel and they'll be like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to go and have a look on YouTube. And it's just, I'm at the stage where I just want great interviews, great insights from people. I'm not bothered about frequency, because I can put other videos out every week on YouTube. It's no problem. I can do a video on bridging or interest rates or buy to lets, you name it. There's loads of content for me to film and put out. But this podcast content, I just want people to get value. So I'm less bothered about.
Who's it aimed at?
It's a good question. I mean, the aim really is anyone that wants to be inspired by somebody's journey. Generally, we have people that have kind of overcome something to get to where they are, whether that was, a self-confidence issue, an illness, whatever it may be. We've got some guests coming up shortly.
Are they all business owners?
No, not all of them. No. So not everyone that comes on is a business owner. I suppose a large proportion of business owners. Okay. But yeah, we've got coming in the new year, we've got some, I suppose quite up and coming people that would be on there, but one has got a business, one's big in a certain sport that's kind of going on, and that will get bigger over the next few years. So it's kind of just showing a lot of these people as well, they've not had the best start, or have had an adverse kind of something happen to them, and then we're kind of showing, like, I guess it's, if you work hard, this is what you can achieve. And looking back and going, well, actually, I overcame that. That's kind of the main format of it.
So people who excel in their fields, or who are thought leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. Just interesting people that you want to sit and you just want to ask them questions, and you want to find out what makes them tick, and you want to find out their way of their version of reality of what the world looks like. And that's inspiring to me,
Yeah. Did you watch that? Because like earlier, you were talking about how you want to make everything like 1% better every single time, just sort of continuous improvement. Did you watch the episode where it wasn't on Diary of a CEO, but it was like Stephen Bartlett's marketing manager? I can't remember what her name is. Is it Emma something? We'll look it up later, and I'm sure it can appear in the bottom here. But there's a podcast episode with her, and she was talking about how like they took Diary of a CEO from 5,000 subscribers to like, was it 2 million now?
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting. And then I haven't watched the whole thing, although I've said that a few times now. But I'm gradually, and this is it. Like, you know, people say this podcast might be too long sometimes, but I think that you just watch them in bits. Like, you know,
That's
you
right,
do
yeah,
10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And then, so I'm still working my way through this, but it was interesting because the guy that was interviewing her said, like you must test at least like, you know, 20 thumbnails before for each episode, and she was like more like 100. So like they're testing 100 thumbnails to see what works best on YouTube before the episode even like officially airs, and that's like, but the podcast must be worth millions. So if it's worth millions, you can afford to do that. And
yeah, it's absolutely, and I think,
but what came first?
Yeah, this is it. You know, I think thumbnails are crucial, and with thumbnails, I have a team of a few people that can design them, and I rotate who's doing the thumbnails and
To keep it fresh.
Yeah, a few reasons. One, to keep it fresh. Secondly, depending on how many views that video gets, you can ascertain the click-through rate. So the click-through rate is when people are sending the thumbnail to actually going into the video, and you need a minimum click-through rate of 5%. If you're hitting 5% or above, it's a good thumbnail, according to the YouTube SEO guy that I use, and it's right. And you can kind of see where the arrows go green on YouTube, and it kind of makes sense. But you know, Mr. Beast is said, after a few years, he'll go back and refresh the thumbnail, so change them up again. And I think it's constantly monitoring what works, because you don't know what works. You just don't until you put it out there. You think, normally when you think, oh, this one's going to be really good, and then it's like not. And when you think nothing of it, you think, and it does amazing. So it just depends, really. But I completely get why they, you know, A/B test 100 thumbnails per episode. Yeah. But if you look at all their thumbnails on Diary of a CEO, they're all quite similar still, aren't they? You know, the format of them. And I think it's keeping it clear and having maybe like a quote or a tagline that grabs potential viewers, you know, attention of, right, well, that looks, click on that, because you only got about 30 seconds to draw them in when they click the content. Yeah. And that's why we do quite a catchy trailer as well.
Yeah, I noticed that actually. Like, we've... you put a lot of work into your trailers, really, don't you?
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's QB, but yeah, he does. Yeah, he's just really good at like what he does. Yeah. You know? So it's that's coming from him. But when we sat down and we wanted it was like, look, we need something to pull people in that's interesting. And the way he edits it, it's just makes you want to watch it. Well, I think so. Yeah.
Well, how many podcasts do you listen to a week?
Good question. I've got my favourite ones. I love Diary of a CEO. Yeah.
Do you watch all of those, by the way? Or do you, as in...
Yeah.
Because I struggle... I mean, there's so many. Like, you just got to pick and choose, really, haven't you?
Yeah, so what I'll do is, if it's a guest that I'm like, oh, I like them, I'll put it on. I'll have it on one screen. I'll just have it in the background, or I'll pause it. Like you said, you'll pause it, come back to it, go back, do a little bit more, and do it in bits. So that's what I kind of like. I love Joe Rogan. He's probably my favourite. Because I just, you know, I'm into like mixed martial arts, boxing, combat sports, and he talks about, you know, a lot on there of that. He has one of my favourite people, Elon Musk, who I think is brilliant. Yeah. Just, he's on there a lot. Mike Tyson, you know, it's just my kind of podcast. Started watching a bit of Theo Von as well. His is quite interesting.
Oh, I don't think I've come across his.
His is quite good. He had Dana White on the other week from the UFC, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I just kind of anything really that's for me. It's like the guest as well, and the way they question the guest.
Yeah,
and how relaxed the guest comes across in their presence. And I think the best person at that is Joe Rogan.
I know who he is. Obviously, I haven't watched many of his, but everyone was always talking about him, so I guess I should.
He's brilliant.
You know,
He's the best. He's the best.
It's
at it.
always you're always trying to prioritize what to read or watch next, aren't you? Because every person you talk to will give you like 5 ideas, and then you could probably get through one of them. But you know what? It's obviously when you're into podcasting, you got to do it right, and you'll only do that by learning from the best people.
This is it, and I think what's really important is to have your own style as well. Like be your style. Like ask the questions you want to ask. And I find it's just when I speak to people that come on my podcast, I'm just talking to them about what I want to know.
It's almost like forget the cameras there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just I just have them because I'm just interested in what they're doing. That's all it is. It's no other reason. And I think that comes across in the conversations that I have, and I like to push people's boundaries as well. I've always been a little bit cheeky and mischievous, so I'll push the questions that I can ask. And
it's all right because you can always edit it out if they really don't want it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's something that it gives me that creative outlet we talked about off camera, and that's what it allows me to do. In terms from a business perspective, I think it's just awareness. That's all it is. When people put me into Google, they'll find the podcast because Google in YouTube is the same.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll give them some value. Maybe they'll then go and look at some of the more mortgage-related videos or the property development videos. Who knows? But I enjoy doing it, and it's not something I'm going to stop doing.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's one thing we've realized from this podcast is it's not just when people Google me that I come up. It's when people Google our guests, we come up.
Yes.
And because I think a lot of the time, even when you're trying to rank on like just the organic results, that can be hard. But it's a lot easier to rank on video results because there's less competition. So it makes sense. I think. So Adam, would you say at the moment you're a podcaster or a mortgage broker?
That's a great question. I would say.
Sorry, by the way, I was going to say if tomorrow the government turned around and said you're only allowed to do one thing, which one? In fact, you know what? This is probably an awkward question, so
that's fine. Go for it.
No, it's fine. If you want to answer it, we can cut it out anyway. It's
I would do the podcasting because there's no regulation. Mm-hmm. Over time, your reach is global.
Yes. So
the potential for income generating is global, has a global reach. Like by far, I would do that. If I had a gun to head, if you put a gun to my head and said you got to pick one, that would win all day long. But in the real world, I love the mortgage business. What I love about that is helping people to get the outcome that they want.
Yeah.
And we deal in a lot of complex, so where the case isn't completely straightforward, that's what we like to do.
So pretty much any business owner.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll know about that from doing SA 302s and stuff for clients. And that's what I love to do as well. It's 50-50. And I kind of, do I consider myself a content creator? Probably now. And I think YouTube is the hardest platform to crack, but for good reason. And I think so many people give up on it.
It's just because of the quality thresholds there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if people go on like Instagram or TikTok, it's quite easy, isn't it, to really kind of put stuff on there and get likes. And
even LinkedIn these days, you can still share a picture of all the birthday cakes you bought into work. And you'll get a certain level of engagement. Although it's getting harder now, but it's...
Yeah. LinkedIn's like, I mean, my view on LinkedIn is, look, it's great for business owners, but if you're working a job, I'm not interested in what you're doing or this Christmas. I don't give a damn, man. Like, that's not for me. I don't really consume the content others are putting out there as well. So like, I will, people will hate me for this, but I'm going to say it, because I think it's so true. And I know a lot of people, they don't like this person for certain reasons. But Andrew Tate says you're either going to create content or you're going to consume it. Which one do you want to be? And I want to create content because you waste so much time doing this scrolling on your phone every day. Getting sucked in. It's hours. But if you're creating that content, you're building your brand, you're building your awareness, and ultimately you're going to achieve your goals. If you look at the average thing people look at, it's like just nonsense.
I think LinkedIn's onto the right thing at the moment with the algorithm changes, because they now, if you post a picture of your cat, they're like, hey, you're a mortgage broker, or you're an accountant, or you're a like a estate agent. Why are you posting a picture of your cat?
Yeah.
And then they'll penalise you for it. And it was a long time in the coming, because LinkedIn was almost becoming the business Facebook to some extent. And so I'm glad they did that. And we've always, I've resisted the urge over all the years where we were getting like penalised for not posting a picture of, well, I don't have a cat, but a cat. And I was like,
I prefer dogs.
Yeah, exactly. But I've always said, like, you know what, we're an accounting firm. Why are we posting it? And why do that? So we stuck to our guns on it. And then eventually, when the LinkedIn algorithm changed and said, okay, well, we're going to penalise that, we like started our impressions, our likes, all of our engagement like tripled. And it was, I think that's a really good thing. But I guess what you're saying is, because maybe it was a trick question, right? What would you rather do? Because the reality is you have to do both.
100%.
It's whether if you're when you're the mortgage broker, you have to talk about how you add value, and and your job as a business owner is to leverage your time. So what's the best way to leverage your time and talk about how much value you add? Get somewhere where multiple people can see you at the same time. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you've really nailed it there when you talk about when people are wanting the answers to specific questions. Well, that's great, I've got a video on that, watch the video. And you can put the video into an email, and then you're kind of like, well, there's loads of information here, and it's probably going to even answer more questions than you probably thought you had. And it's there, or there's another video, one video that does really well on YouTube is about the credit score, how to improve your credit score, because people want to know, they might have adverse credit and they're thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to get a mortgage and down the line. And
I was going to say, because I did a video on how to improve your business's credit score.
There you go. And I bet it did well, right?
It did, yeah. And we had a corresponding article as well. So it's you've got to do it. And then I guess also as a business owner, you forget a lot of stuff. Like you're always learning so much new stuff quite a lot of the time. Like, that's saying I've forgotten more than you've learned.
Yeah. And I think this time, you said there, time. How do you, when you're trying to get more time, because that's what you run out of, isn't it? Time.
Yeah.
And that gives you time by saying, look, there's a video, then we can talk about it. And 9 times out of 10, people they enjoy the content and think, oh, I didn't know that, or I learned something new. But it's time is the most precious commodity, isn't it? People talk about money. Yeah. Money's super important to buy time, but time is the ultimate kind of aim, isn't it? To have that time to use as you wish. And I'm a big believer in delegating things I'm not good at.
Yeah.
So, admin, power planning, that kind of thing, video editing. Why am I going to sit there and learn how to edit a video when I can pay someone to do it and earn more in that time than what I'm paying for?
That's a mindset thing, because most people, when they're starting out or they're really pushing their business, they're always going to be tight on cash. Yeah. And the answer is yes, you should always outsource and delegate. And the other thing is also, that applies to your team as well. Don't get people in your team to do stuff just because they've got time. Get the people to do stuff because they've got the skills. And so we end up, even though at times we have capacity in our team to do things, we'd rather outsource it to people that already know how to do it, who can do it quickly, and find other ways to get people in our team to do things.
This is it. And I think as well, when you trust someone and they're going to do a good job, you ain't got to worry about it. You ain't got to check anything. You're not going to, they're going to deliver it to you by the date that you've agreed, and it's going to be good. And all you got to do is post it or upload it. Mm-hmm. There's no stress involved. And I think that's so important. And look, I get, you've hit the nail on the head. And a lot of what I do is mindset. It's the mindset I've created in my head. And believe you me, mate, it's taken me a long time to get to that stage. It's constant personal development of failure after failure, and you have to fail to succeed.
Fail fast, learn fast.
Exactly. And it's only when you get to that stage you think, you know what, like I have a cleaner cleans my house, because it would take me ages to clean my house, and I could actually earn more money in that time by doing client income generating tasks that's going to 10x 20x what I'm paying. Do you see what I mean? So it's just kind of, once you have that mindset in your brain, it's everything's so much easier.
A lot of it comes down to faith, right? You've got to have faith that you will use the time effectively. And then you've got to have faith that the time you use effectively will pay off and give you a return. It's not, I don't think it's always obvious. Like, I guess we've really had the middle of the podcast first. So a good starting point is like, how did you get into Alfa Mortgages and starting out in business?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So
'cause you mentioned it's taken you a while to get that mindset. Did you have it before you started Alfa Mortgages, or did you develop it afterwards?
yeah, so it's been a constant progress over the years. But I'll take you back. So I did university. I only went to university because there was no other option. It's not go to university. And I did design and technology at Loughborough. So like top 10 uni, great uni.
Yeah.
And I just went, because I don't know what I'll do. But everyone just got pushed at that time.
Sorry, yeah, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
36. I'll be 37 in March.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm 39, in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I remember like the Tony Blair years. Everyone's like, go to uni.
It was Tony, wasn't it? That did all that. So we got pushed there, and then I get to university, and I find out I've got dyslexia, and then later on I found out I had ADHD, and it made sense. And I think I shouldn't really be here. I should be doing something. So I created a business doing nightclub promotion for students, and that was really successful. And I had like the biggest night at the university. We had 3,000 people coming a week on a Thursday night, and that was I did that for a few years. Left university, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Ended up getting a job, just going on Reed, looking at good graduate jobs. And then a recruitment firm contacted me down in Brighton. They don't exist anymore, they merged, but the girl that was a recruiter had graduated at the same time, so we were the same age. Lovely girl, just got on really well. She's like, sorted me out a job. It was in Santander in Milton Keynes, and it was contracting. And then the day rate was £80. And back then I was like, oh, wow, that's great. So sign me up. And I went and did it. And the first day she said to me, if you do these exams, you can get £250, £400 a day. I was like, okay, what exams? It's like mortgages, pensions, investments. All right, cool. So I did that, and I started doing other contracts. I worked for companies like Deloitte, KPMG, just going around the country like London, Manchester, Leicester, Birmingham, on all these investment projects, making good money. And then the contracting died down, IR35.
Yeah.
It killed it. It was aimed at IT contractors, right? And then it just affected the whole industry. So then I got picked up, had my CV online, got picked up by St James's Place to go and work in risk and compliance for like investments. So working with SJP partner practices, doing like business development, checking their compliance, all that good stuff. And that's where I learned about wealth management and financial advice and mortgages and how to help people grow businesses. And I was sitting there, and I spent 5 years there before I got bored. I got bored a bit before, but then I was looking for, something good to come along. And I knew, okay, if you do X, you go to your BNI, you do your networking, all of this, you can build quite a successful financial business. So, yeah, end of 2020, I have a friend, a good friend of mine, and he started doing some like fintech work down in London. He's like, oh, have you heard about this new thing? There's loads of like VC firms like looking to plow money into tech startups, and they need people to do compliance. So I joined this firm as like a head of a compliance, which was interesting. I was there for a year, just helping them with the FCA application and things like that. And I remember at the time we'd done a lot of work with ex-SJP partners with this firm I was at. And there was one that was actually kind of affiliated with us that we were dealing kind of clients with. And I thought, all my time I was at SJP, They never put a focus on mortgages, ever. It was all funds under management. We need to get funds under management because they could charge a recurring fee. Now, there's other problems in the media about that now. I'm sure you're probably aware. But
with the SIPs or?
Yeah, the ongoing servicing for clients and all of that. And I just thought, no one really cares about mortgages. And I remember I was sitting there one evening with my wife and I was just like, you know what, I've seen a bit of an opportunity. Because I know hundreds of people from SJP that don't do mortgages. So why don't I set up a mortgage firm and just be like the go-to person that for them to do mortgages, sign them up as introducers, pay them away a percentage. Could do that. She's like, that's not a bad idea. And that it started from there, in a meal, in a pub, on a Friday evening, just as an idea. And I thought, no, I can do this. And a few months later, I was authorised and regulated. And
who's the network that supports you on it?
Beneficial.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're based up in Manchester. Great guys. Big mention to Nick, who's up there, top guy, really, really good guy. Got a good relationship with him, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I mean, they offer that kind of regulatory infrastructure. And mate, I started it from nothing, like literally just a thought. And yeah, I have like annual audits. And he said to me the other day, he goes, mate, he said, in your first year, you've probably had the best first year out of anyone that's ever done.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah. And I was just like, wow, that's, and I'm talking, no clients, no, I'd not written mortgage business. I'm a qualified financial advisor, qualified mortgage advisor. I'd always been developing the businesses, helping with the compliance. And yeah, just started from that, mate.
What'd you do in your first month?
Like nothing, pretty much. Yeah, like nothing. Just literally, I was just out.
I mean, yeah, exactly. What action did you take?
Oh, actions. I just went out networking, face-to-face networking. So I did, a few of these ones where you just go and they're a bit like a coffee thing. And I just started going around. I started meeting people, networking, looked on Instagram and stuff. And I thought, no, I need to get into video. I said, people, they're just posting pictures. This is shit. This just looks crap. Like, nah, if I'm going to do it, let's do it properly. So from about, bear in mind, I started the end, like 31st of October. By the end of November, I was already looking into like YouTube. How can I create video? What camera do I need? What mics? What equipment? And just started that process. And at the same time, just carried on going networking. Then in the start of the year, end of Feb, I was like, right, stuff it. Let's just go try join BNI. One of the best things I did. And just more networking, getting involved in that. Then all the other stuff, the video started to develop. Existing client referrals started to come through. Built a good network of people, like solicitors that I work with. And it just goes for every day. The snowball just keeps continuing. And but it's only because I'm so relentless, like I don't I don't give up on anything. I'm just like, I probably work 12, 13, 14 hours a day because I love it, because I'm just obsessive about what I'm doing. And whether that's putting clips out on Opus Clips or whether that's coming up with a script idea for a video, or whether that's having a meeting with a client, or signing up a new introducer to come on board. It's all those things, and it's just, it massively affects my life in terms of like the relationships I have with my wife and things like that.
What, in a good way or?
No, in a very negative way.
Yeah.
But because I'm just so focused, and I'm in, I don't know if it's like my ADHD, the way I'm wired is I'm literally wired all the time. And that's all I think about is, right, the business being successful and getting, what is the end goal? I don't know, but I'm just I just want to help people get the outcome they want.
Yeah. And
enjoy the process of doing it. I just enjoy what I'm doing, That's it, from nothing. And I like the fact people say to me, that know me, like Fred, they go, you started that from nothing. I'm like, yeah, nothing. Just an idea. And I have to remind myself when I'm having them tough days and I'm thinking, oh, fuck, where it started and what it was at the beginning, which was nothing. to where it is now. And I'm like, wow, we've done a lot in that time, We've done a lot.
Yeah, I mean, well, like your brand's come a very long way. When did you? So you started in, was it 2021?
2022.
Yeah, so
31st of October.
Well, yeah, and you're everywhere now. It's what would you say, Adam, is the biggest source of your leads so far?
I would say networking.
Okay.
And I would say, but more and more now, it's coming in from content through video. So a lot of people that watch the video seem to get in contact with me now through people that maybe been on something that we've done, or that people have reposted something, like Ryan that I work with, maybe I had a client through him that he had saw me and Ryan in a video, and it was like, oh, Adam does bridging finance. He's like, yeah, he does all of them for me. And he's like, oh, here's the details. Do you know what I mean? Call this guy up. And then we're, next day we were issuing terms on a bridge. It's every day, mate. I'm sitting there in the morning, my phone's just blowing up. We're coming to Christmas. Normally in this industry, this is like the quiet down period. Yeah. I'm getting busier every day. It's mad. It's mad. And I think within 12 months, I will take on an advisor.
So what does your team look like at the moment?
So it's me, my admin paraplanner, Emma. So she's remote, based out of Stanford, brilliant. She's part of a firm that basically outsource. So we're in contact day in, day out. And she's an ex-broker as well, so she gets it.
Yeah, okay.
She gets it. And, we're just part of the team, really. It's me and her. I would like to, the next kind of hire really would be an advisor, but I get recruiters ringing me up all the time. I was on the phone to one this morning, and I'm no bullshit. I ain't got time. I'm like one-line emails. I hate long emails and stuff like this. And she was like, oh, we've got would you take an employed advisor? I said, no. I said, they've got to be hungry. I want someone starving to earn money that's going to go out there every morning, networking, meeting people, using the brand behind them to be known. I said, I don't want pay someone a salary that's going to sit on their ass expecting to be fed. That's not how it works. Because let's not lie. It's a sales job, isn't it? Anything financial, you are selling to people, and you've got to have that mentality.
It's technical sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Lovely way to put it. Technical sales, and you've got to be out there meeting people, drumming up business. Yeah. That's the role. We've got the back office support. Emma's fantastic at, the power planning, the putting of cases. I'll always say, look, this is what I'm thinking. She'll kind of be like, yeah, or have you thought about this? But ultimately, the recommendation is coming from me, and I'll tweak stuff and say, look, we're doing it like this, or this lender's going to be good. I've done it before. And she's just processing it. But I don't want someone that's going to come and just expect me to pay them to sit on their ass. What's the point? I want someone to go out and grow and be hungry. Someone that wants to earn money and wants to change their life. Because believe you me, doing this job, you can change your life.
Actually, that is one of the most rewarding things we do. I mean, we do many rewarding things, but it's like helping someone getting into their new home. And I guess actually what you do is get them a mortgage, but a lot of the time, an accountant can be proactive about making sure someone's in the right position to get that mortgage. So we always prioritize that part of it, because in the end of the day, if someone gets a £100 penalty on a late submission, obviously that would never happen. If it did happen, we would cover that penalty if it was our fault. But missing out on your dream home, or missing out on a home and being on the street or in rental, that's probably one of the greatest areas an accountant can add value, making sure that you do that. Obviously, there are many other areas where we add value, but I do find that quite a rewarding one. So that's one of our lines in the sand. Whatever happens, we have to just drop what we're doing and make sure that these clients got the information they need, and also be proactive about it. Don't ask those questions the month before they need to get a mortgage. Ask it 2 years before.
I've just submitted an application. Have you got some SA 303s? Yeah. No, and I think that's why it's so important that you're having those conversations with them. And ultimately as well, understanding, yes, people want to pay as little tax as possible, but actually, what's your plans? Are you planning to move home? Are you planning to take on a bigger mortgage? Because if you are, you got to have the hit on the tax. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is. You know that, I know that, and it's just about educating the clients so that they're on board.
Yeah.
Saying you can't have 12 grand a year earnings and get a 500 grand mortgage. It just doesn't work.
It's all the times where I've got to talk people out of just putting through a really big salary for 3 months.
And it's like, no, that's fraud.
Yeah, exactly. And but you know what? It's just they hear it from the guy down the pub, and or women down the pub.
And this is the thing, but it's not worth it. It's not worth my license doing that. I can't be bothered to do things like that. I just want good, honest clients that we can help, and the accountant for a self-employed individual is probably their most important contact, isn't it? And it's about having those conversations with your accountant to say, this is what my plan is. This is what I'm going to be thinking about doing over the next couple of years. What's your advice? How do we show that level of income? And it needs to be consistent over 2 years. It's or at least if it needs to be higher on one end. It's most recent.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, because it's about having conversations. We've had clients in the past, and they're like, "Oh, I did this, and you didn't advise me on it," and I'm like, "But how do we know you did that?" But quite literally, how do we know you did that? It's like, no, they never mention it. And although we've got other clients where they'll talk to us every other week, and that's absolutely fine. And the reality is, like, those clients, because we've got like an all-you-can-eat advice service, and I think that's really important, because the more value we can add, the longer a client will stay with us, the more we'll make in the long term anyway. But there's some clients might only talk to us once a year, whereas we've got other clients who will talk to us every other week, and we're proactive about it. We do have members of our team calling people and saying, "Hey, have you?" We're just touching base. How is everything going? But there's just a lot of business owners who just don't realise one of the biggest resources they have is the suppliers that they're paying, and they should actually be reaching out and building those. I mean, that's just leadership in general. Like we try and make it as easy as possible, but quite often you've got to go and ask the right questions, or at least ask any questions, even say hello, and then they'll ask the right questions. But
this is it, and I think when you look at, you've got two types of like mortgage applicants. You've got the people buying their residential home where there's a lot of emotional attachment to it. Then you've got the investors, which is just numbers. Is it, they're good investors, detached emotionally from the transaction. It's all business. We're just getting it through. They're easy to deal with, right? But then, it's having that empathy, isn't it, to deal with those residential emotional clients, and because you think, oh, this is like everything to them, and it's a huge responsibility, and we're good at dealing with that, but it's when they're self-employed client, it's just constant barriers going up. Self-employed, maybe there's some credit as well, and it's just kind of like, but that's what we're good at, piecing together those complex cases and going, well, actually, have you thought about this, or you've got a bit of debt there, we're trying to raise funds, but actually that's going to be easier for you every month if we consolidate that debt. Yes, you may pay more interest on it over the long term, but that's going to free up 700 quid a month disposable. Oh, that'd take a weight off our shoulders. Well, let's do that then. So it's solutions.
Don't you find it a bit mad that an employee can get a mortgage with one pay slip and a self-employed or a business owner needs like 3 years of accounts?
Mate, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Because what if that employee lost their job next month?
Exactly. What are the chances that self-employed person is going to lose all their clients?
They're not.
I kind of feel
they're a better risk as self-employed with the business with a track record. There's such a better risk in my eyes, because that person's hungry. They've got up every single day. They've grinded hard when they thought like giving up, and they've still got an income. And that income's probably going up every year. It's rare that you're going to have a huge decline, unless it's something like outside of their control that they couldn't influence, right? They're a better candidate. Like, surely 1 month pay slip. Yeah, honestly, mate, You'll be amazed. We've had some that have gone through over the last couple of months on the lender's portal, and it hasn't even asked for any documents because they can check the pay through HMRC. No documents, nothing, just gone straight through. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, they've just lent near on 400 grand for this one client I'm thinking of. I haven't even checked anything. It's just checking HMRC through a portal, and you think. But then when it's a self-employed client, if you're going down a specialist lender route, they want a kitchen sink, mate. They want everything thrown in. And of course, you prepare the client beforehand. You can say, look, this is what we got to give up front, but be prepared. It can be reactive. They may ask for X, Y, and Z. So send it over now so we've got it and we can give it off. And yeah, it's just due diligence. And there's nothing better than when you think, because I think in some cases I think, oh man, this is like borderline. And I'll always manage the client's expectations of, look, I think this should be fine, but there's X, Y, and Z that we need to think about. And ultimately it's at the discretion of the underwriter. It's not, if it was me making the decision, I'd approve it, but it's down to them. And 99 times out of 100, it will be fine. But it plays on my mind. Do you know what I mean? I'll be sitting there thinking, fuck it. I hope this one goes through. Do you know what I mean? And I can get emotional to it.
Yeah, I mean, because in the end of the day, like you work with people and then they've got young families, and there's a lot of relatability there. I've got a young family, and it's I get that. It's very hard, like when you're a small business owner, not to get like personally invested in your clients. And I do, because the underlying thing I found, like when you're small business owners, is like you're genuinely grateful to your clients, because if you're doing something you love doing, you're only doing it because of them. So I've always found that detachment quite hard. But then the other side is that the lack of detachment has got things done when anyone else couldn't have gotten that done. So it can go both ways. It's about finding balance, really, isn't it?
100%. I think that's exactly spot on what you said. And I think when you're dealing with investors, it's numbers. It's we're buying at X, we're going to spend Y on it, and we're going to sell it at Z and make that profit. Okay. And I use these case studies in videos all the time, and it's just like, they know the drill. Like there's no, they're not moving into it or anything like that. It's just, it's going to make me X amount of money, and I'm happy with that. Yeah. Oh, it's just so easy to deal with. So easy. When you've got the emotional and you start hearing the story, you're like, it's like there's the weight of the world's on your shoulders. But, touch wood.
You know what? It's, absolutely. I guess for me, the line in the sand's always been like, I won't help someone more than willing to help themselves.
Yes,
that's got to be an important one, and I've forgotten that at times. But actually, that's a good rule.
Yeah. It's just made me think of a quote there. I just want to get it exactly right before I say it. That's it. You got to participate in your own rescue.
That's it. Okay. Where who said that?
I can't remember who said it, where it came from specifically, but it rings in my bell. You have to participate in your own rescue. Yeah. Basically, what it translates to is, don't expect everyone else to like come and get you out of it. Yeah. You've got to do it yourself. And I'm big on self-reliance, and I guess it comes from the mindset thing as well. Like, look, every human has a level of shit in their life, and life is like this. Yeah. It's never perfect, or it's never on a downward decline. And you just have to think, what can I control? And what are the uncontrollables, and focus on what you can control and do that, and just tunnel vision in on it to get out of the situation. Participate in your own rescue, because you can't expect everyone else to come and go dig you out of the hole constantly, because you're just going to drag them into the hole. Because misery loves company, doesn't it? That's another great quote. Misery loves company. And it's a lot better to be around positive people. Generally, everything's more positive then. But when you're around people that's energy vampires sucking the life out of you, it's a hard place to get out of, man. And I must admit, as I've gone on my journey over the last few years, a lot of people that friends that I hang out with, I don't hang out with anymore, and it's because they're dragging me down like mentally.
I've definitely experienced that.
It's a lonely place, isn't it? Sometimes when you're on the way up.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the drivers. Like I'd say the last 12 months is probably the first time in the last 10 years we haven't actually grown as a business. But what we've been doing the whole time is like we've been gaining really good quality clients, and we've been losing clients that didn't quite have the same mindset we did, and to some extent even members of staff. Although like we've had great people work for us over the years who aren't with us, but I think because like we've been more overt online than ever, so people get our values. We talk about our values a lot more than we've ever talked about, so we kind of creating this polarity between like people who are good but not quite aligned, and people who are aligned, and it's made a huge difference. Because I think mindset wise, I'm like at the moment we've probably had like our best month ever in terms of leads.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that is just me hanging out with the right people, understanding like the right things to invest our marketing budget in, understanding how to take a long-term view, show up like a leader rather than a friend, all that kind of stuff that you can only get with being invited into a certain group of people. And also a lot of the people I'm hanging out with these days, I actually get imposter syndrome around them, which
that's a good place to be.
It is, yeah, absolutely, because it means that you either shrink or grow, and so it's it's interesting, definitely. But there's a lot of positive things around it. You just got to spend, as you said, like do your best to surround yourself with the right people.
This is it, and I mean, there's a guy called Grant Mitt on Instagram, based out of America.
Okay,
business guy, interesting guy. You should definitely look him up. And he does a lot of reels through a podcast that he does, and he says exactly that. Be around people where you do feel like you're the one standing out. You're the imposter. You feel the most unintelligent, uneducated, not got a clue what you're doing, and that's where you want to be, because that's the place where you grow as a person. Not in the comfort zone. It's like when I started training in the gym about 15 years ago, someone said to me, "You've got to level it up, go to a harder gym where you're smaller." I mean, you want to be the smallest guy in there, the most inexperienced person, the unfittest person to learn off all these people, because they're going to pull you up if you've got the right mindset, and it's about being that small fish in a big pond, isn't it? It's so important, and everything is mindset, everything. And everything that comes through on my like LinkedIn when I'm on there, because I'm not consuming the content, but when I see it pop through, it's people that are saying good things. There's another guy, local guy, who's got really good content. Again, people might like not agree with the way his style, but Alex Moisey does all this.
I've heard of him,
real estate. Used to work with Tyrone Ash, another interesting guy that's got a great backstory. We've got mutual friends actually. Maybe he'll come on the podcast one day. I don't know, but a story where he's been in prison. Now he's got like a huge, successful, multi-million-pound turnover real estate company in the UK and Dubai. Listen to people that have been there and done it. Alex worked with him. Great mindset. Great in all realms, fitness, business, mindset, everything. Listen to what these people are saying, and believe you me, like you fill your mind with good stuff. It's if you're consuming crap, then that you're just going to be. If you're watching people doing videos of falling over, like what good is that going to do?
Yeah.
Like seriously, it's wasting time completely.
I've got a PT, and that's pretty much what he shows me between exercises. but actually, it does. It takes my mind off the pain.
Yes, but I think how much more successful he could be.
Yeah,
like consuming it with good content. But I mean, it really is, isn't it? Like the old saying, "Garbage in, garbage out." That's what you get. You put good stuff in, you get good stuff out. And I think we are so lucky today with the amount of platforms and accessibility and reach we have to all kinds of content. But you just got to pick what it is that you're going to consume, if you're going to consume anything. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down, and they get into that, scrolling doom, and they just think, oh my God, hours have gone by. And, I'm in some, groups of old friends, and they'll send stuff, and it's just shit, and you think, I ain't got time to look at that. I just don't have time.
Yeah, WhatsApp's the worst. It's just like people
Mute.
Yeah, well, even then, but then people are like, hey, it's in the WhatsApp chat, but there's hundreds of messages there. How am I going to find it? It's, yeah, I don't know how people have that much time. I really don't. But no, that's really good. Yeah, your mind's got to be. Who said? I mean, was it sharpen the sword? So I mean, but that's about going out and learning stuff, but learning useful stuff. That was a Stephen R. Covey, I guess. But that's really cool. Yeah, I understand. Like, yeah, fill your mind with the right stuff. And so, some of the biggest changes in this business have come about because we started hanging around with the right people, who then recommended the right books and right content, and then we absorbed the right content, and then ended up having a ongoing discussion with the right people about that right content, and that's how we grew. And it didn't cost a lot. It just meant showing up in the right way, them saying, hey, I like the way you show up online and all that kind of stuff, let's have a chat. And that's, in some ways there's so many expensive ways to go and get an education. University now, definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say now. My thoughts on that now is, unless you're going to a top 10 uni and you're going to do something that's even Oxford and Cambridge excluded, because it's just the prestige you'd get. You go and do anything there, you get a job in an investment bank if you want. Anything else, it's just not worth the paper it's written on, really. You're better off saving that 50 grand, 60 grand, whatever it costs you, and going out and getting a job and getting experience and learning from someone that you want to replicate.
Yeah, that's why apprenticeships are amazing. Although the caveat is, I would rather my doctor went to university.
Well, it depends, doesn't it? It depends.
Yeah,
did they just go and learn basics and not really pursue it, or are they good and are they passionate? And you know what would be really interesting if you had a doctor that did an apprenticeship, learn all the same things, but it was more on the job. So they were sitting next to they just followed him around for 5 years. I'd love to.
Is that like a nurse or?
No, I'm just saying. Imagine if there was something where not a nurse, but you were the doctor's buddy.
Yeah.
And you just did everything that doctor did. You're in all their consultations, any surgery they performed, you did all that. You saw everything they saw. Imagine the comparison from someone that did just learn at uni to that. I don't know what that would be, but I'd bet your money the person that did the work experience route would probably be better at the job.
I guess, yeah. It's a good point, definitely.
I'd love to just see, like, just throwing it out there. Well, whether that would do it or not, I don't know. I'm not, but I would put money on it if I had to bet that that's what would happen. So my advice to anyone now would be, unless you're particularly gifted, you're going to get into a top 10, don't bother. What's the point? You could probably save 50 or 60 grand and put that into education elsewhere, or
a business. Yeah,
business is the best form. I
mean, to be fair, business is a very expensive education. The tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, I've wasted over the years learning lessons. But the thing is, you do something, you read about something, and you decide to do it or not to do it. But actually, that decision then doesn't mean anything until you've got your own money riding on it.
Yeah, it's skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly. It's the skin in the game that gets the lesson to really sink in. But also, it's the skin in the game that gets you to hone something to that level of detail needed. Like, most people are doing the right things, they're just not doing them to the right level of detail and enough of them, or consistently. Yeah. So
this is the thing. I mean, you mentioned it. We talk about consistency. Yeah, everyone can do a post on LinkedIn. Yeah, great. Or on Instagram, or maybe make one video on YouTube. Are you showing up every day or every week? Are you consistently producing content and putting it out there? If the answer is no, then that's why you're not getting results. It's like, you don't go to the gym once and get end gains, do you? You have to consistently go
you're right.
many years. And it's the same in all aspects of life, and in business. And you mentioned there about you wasted thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, but it's not wasted because you learn.
You're right. It's exactly, yeah. It's
who's it? Thomas Edison. He knows 1,000 ways that you can't make a light bulb, but he knows one that where you
absolutely,
can.
Yeah.
So you know 1,000 ways not to do it, but you know one where actually this is working for me.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, wasted. Yeah, it's called research and development.
Yeah, R&D. Yeah.
No, amazing. And do you have a mentor at the moment? Do you have a coach? Like who?
No, I don't. So, uh, yeah. So with regards, I've got a bit of a thought on that really. I think there's a lot of people now, they're popping up and they're saying, I'm a coach, I'm this and that. What's your credentials? Like, I would only listen to someone that's done what I want to achieve in any realm, whether that's fitness, business, mindset, whatever that may be. You've got to be top of the game for me to even want to listen to you, right? And I think there's been, I don't know whether it's since like COVID or whatever, and there just seems to have been an abundance of, I'm a business coach, I'm this, and then you see it, networking, various networkings, and you think, well, what do you know that I don't? Do you know what I mean?
We've had this conversation in the past, well, very recently actually, because like we do a lot in terms of advising clients on their business. Like we got our standard accounting offering, but then we've got something beyond that where we really focus on getting a business ready for sale. But it's the key thing is the reason why we've always managed to get results on it is like when we say, hey, you've got to build like you've got to build a marketing infrastructure. You've got to show up every single day. It can't just be about you. It's got to be about your brand as well. Like we do it.
Yeah, you're walking the walk.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like, hey, you're gonna have to build a sales team, or you're gonna have to outsource that. We do it. Anything else, it's so it can be difficult for like a one-man band coach to go to a business that's already got 10 employees or 5 employees and say, well, look, I'm going to tell you all the risks to take, but not take those risks themselves.
This is it. It's the skin in the game again, isn't it? And this goes back to the conversation I have. Recruiters ringing me. I want people that got skin in the game. They're going to go out and work their ass off every day. And if I think a coach could be a good thing if they've done what I want to achieve. So whenever I do consume anything, it's of people that I know, bloody hell, I could learn from them, and I will listen to what they say.
Yeah.
I will 100%. Whether it's people like Elon Musk, I think he's brilliant. Whether it would be people like Joe Rogan, or whether it would be, some of the stuff Andrew and Tristan Tate say on business is good.
Yeah.
People have got other views about other stuff. And so, I don't agree with everything they say. Piers Morgan, I think, as well, is an interesting guy. Richard Branson, classic.
Yeah, I guess so. And they've created loads of really good content you can absorb for free, even or at low cost. I guess, and before I piss off every coach out there, and I'll just throw the caveat in that there is a time in my business where actually coaching was actually very helpful. Quite a lot of what we've achieved has been from coaching over the years. It's just some people don't need it because they skip that bit, and because they get that from other resources, which for me, I've learned so much from like business books and stuff, but I only really started reading them like 3 years ago. Whereas if I had done that at the beginning, but it took me working with coaches to understand I needed to do that. So I think some people naturally get into that faster than others, and I just wasn't one of those people.
I think it depends on your mindset. Are you looking for a learning and a growth mindset? And I've always been keen to learn, like a lifelong learner. Whether I'm learning through videos on YouTube, whether it was at my time at SJP, whenever I was working at a fintech, it's all stuff that I've learned, they know about technology. I'm just going to embrace everything they teach me about technology. Or SJP was great for business development. That's how I learned about BNI. You just have to. But then you've got to realise as well, like, well, actually, they're a coach, but they ain't got a bloody clue what they're talking about. They might not know my industry. Their mindset might not be aligned to my mindset. And I think anyone that is selecting a coach needs to think carefully about who's going to be coaching them and what it is that person's really achieved, because that's their reality, and your reality may not be aligned, or it may be different. You might think you can do more, and you need to have a limitless mindset. And that's something that took me a lot of years to kind of overcome, was limitless. Anything is possible if you visualize it and you work towards that. 100%. Conor McGregor, great example. If you ever listen to an interview with Conor McGregor, he visualized what he was going to achieve before he achieved it. And a lot of great people, a lot of successful people, whether they're business owners, famous sports people, Tyson Fury is another one, they visualize it before it happens, and it happens. And once you start doing that, things do happen. Like, I've visualized things and they've happened, and I'm like, wow, the mind's powerful, you know. But the mind's powerful at propelling you forward, but also holding you back. So how are you going to use it? And that's only to the individual to choose how they're going to use their mind, because it's the most powerful thing, believe you me. And it can get you in some deep, dark holes, but it can also put you in some really good places.
Yeah, it was. We had, was it Michelle on the podcast, and she was talking about like how a lot of people always think about the worst case scenario, and it's like, think about the best case or the most realistic. I'm an accountant. I think about the most realistic. But the things I've really messed up in my business over the years, although we've recovered that and then some, is I always used to have this focus on the worst case scenario. I'd be like, oh yeah, worst case scenario. Oh, this won't work. We just won't do it then. And it took a long time for me to reconfigure my mind to just say, okay, let's not look at the worst case. Let's look at the most realistic. And then things became a lot more viable. We stuck with them over a longer period, and then they did start paying off. And I do think a lot of business owners need to shift away from this thought process of things that are always going to go wrong, because they're not always going to go wrong.
Yeah. It's just the mind playing tricks, isn't it? And, you know, there's always that element of risk in there where things can. But I think what you have to do, and what's helped me, is tunnel vision. It's almost like a la 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 la.
Focus.
Background noise, just block it out. Focus on what the goal that I want it to be is. Drown the noise out, and just until something happens, you can. What's the point worrying about it? And I think it's my mum, actually. You know, when I've had personal issues in my life, I was like, well, don't worry about what you can't focus, what you can't control. And if you apply that to everything, it's like tunnel vision. Right, well, this is what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm going to focus on, and ignore the noise. And I'm just going to focus on that. If it happens, then I'll think about how I'm going to deal with it. And I'll deal with it at the time, because I'm wasting energy and time just thinking about it.
What Stephen R. Covey calls it your circle of concern and your circle of influence. So there's all the things you're worried about, but there's things that you can actually do something about right now. And it's definitely a good point.
It's controlling the controllables again.
Exactly. So you've talked about a lot of things. If there was just one bit of advice you could give someone who was starting out in business, what would it be?
You will doubt yourself. You'll doubt yourself every day, probably for the first 6 months, maybe 12 months. Don't stop. Don't ever stop. Put your tunnel vision on and just keep going, because there'll come a point where it pays off, and it's minimum 6 to 12 months before you get going, and then every day be a little bit better. So do not ever stop. Do not ever give up. That would be my advice.
I agree with that, definitely. And Adam, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, so you can get me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, the main ones, TikTok if you like that, Facebook, or everywhere. We're on all platforms.
Amazing. Well, everyone, you've been watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. Adam, thank you so much for joining us, and keep watching for the next episode.